Perfect. I think this is the time, 6:30 sharp, German time. Very happy to have all of you. I see that we are all here already. Maybe we can all start our cameras and yes, slowly starting to unmute ourselves. Welcome everybody to the first event of Melanin Capital and the welcoming event of the Tuungane program. I'm very happy to have all of you, and let me start by thanking all our speakers who came today and took the time to discuss with us about how entrepreneurship and collaborations between Africa and Europe can enhance the sustainable development goals on our dear continent. Thank you all for participating. Let me first start by briefly introducing the concept. I am Melanin Kapital, the CEO of Melanin Capital. And basically what we do at Melanin Capital is building bridges between Africa and Europe and connecting entrepreneurs with investors, mentors, and business partners on the European continent. We do that by providing education, advisory, and connection to the social impact entrepreneurs that are trying to change lives in their local communities in Africa. The idea is basically to go even beyond funding and to provide to those entrepreneurs the right network and knowledge to get access to those opportunities even before they get access to investors. So we have the rare opportunity today to discuss a little bit more about the big picture of these African and European collaborations. And this introduced really well the Tuungane program that we have started with our team since the beginning of the year. The idea of Tuungane is to unite. That's what it means in Kiswahili, let's unite. So we wanted to unite African entrepreneurs with European entrepreneurs so that they could build sustainable partnerships to solve a critical SDG. This was coming, unfortunately, at a time where COVID restricted all travel, so we decided to still do it online. And although the African Union and European Union Summit could not occur in October, we still tried to prepare for this great event and propose a program in which we will showcase different collaborations and sustainable partnerships to support the continent. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our amazing speakers that we have today. And I will start with you, Haifa. Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us. Haifa Ben Salem, you are the Associate Program Officer at the United Nations International Trade Center, and you focus on the tech sector development. Basically, your work involves capacity building of tech startups, connecting digital entrepreneurs to market opportunities and investments, and promoting job creation through tech entrepreneurship and innovation. Thank you so much for joining us, and we are looking forward to having your perspective on how entrepreneurship and technology can advance the agenda of the EU and the EU in this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melanie and Diane, for this initiative.
Thanks. We also have on the table Ms. Grace Lokako. Welcome, Grace. You are basically in charge of ecosystem innovations at WeBloom Foundation, based in Switzerland. And through this foundation, you support women entrepreneurship on the continent, which we know is a critical issue in the region. So we have the opportunity to discuss more with you how we can support the ecosystem better and what is still lacking there to support African women entrepreneurs. Thank you very much again for being here with us this evening.
Thanks for having me, Melanie. I'm really happy to be here and to have this conversation with these amazing people.
Thank you. Then we have around us today, Mr. Youssouf Diakité, CEO and founder of the African Diaspora Youth Forum in Europe. Welcome, Youssouf. Your organization basically brings together 110 diaspora organizations and more than 10,000 members and companies. You work especially with the African Union on building bridges between the African youth and the European youth, focusing on providing entrepreneurship and financial training. Thank you very much again for accepting our invitation and for being here with us tonight.
Thank you to you, Melanie.
And we also have Dr. Frank Aswani, CEO of the Africa Venture Philanthropy Alliance. Welcome, Frank. This is a pleasure to have you here as well. Frank, you have an extensive experience in both the private and social sectors, in particular when it comes to corporate partnerships, business development, and fundraising activities. We look forward to having your perspective on how even investors can actually collaborate to advance SDGs on the continent. Thank you again for coming with us and joining this panel.
Thank you, Melanie. Happy to be here.
And finally, last but not least, we have the pleasure to welcome Mr. Gerard Olis-Achar, who besides being the CEO of Cyberbridge Group, a UK-based cybersecurity consultancy, you are also the co-founder of the Diaspora Angel Network, or DAN, and we'll be delighted to learn more about the role of the diaspora in the whole investment ecosystem and how it advances the African-European relationships. Thank you again for being here tonight, Gerard. Oh, I think you're on mute. Sorry, Gerard. We can't hear you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
No, the pleasure is all ours. Thank you again. And without waiting any longer, I will start already with the questions, starting with you, Yusuf, actually, for us to understand a little bit better the big picture with your experience as an youth envoy for the African Union. You've worked a lot into this agenda of the EU in building bridges between the African youth and the European youth. And would like to know if you could please tell us more about the Africa-European Partnership Agenda and how it impacts entrepreneurship on the continent.
Thank you again, Melanie. It's really a pleasure to be here and discuss about this topic again with you. Yes, as you said, the African Diaspora Youth Forum is a platform we deal a lot with the African Union and the European Commission. Why? It's because years ago, we designed our organization through this model because we've seen a kind of gap between the cooperation, African and Europe cooperation. And around 10 years ago, where we had the first meeting, the joint, what we call the Joint Africa-Europe Summit, which happened in Cairo. We had opportunities also as young people to be there. And then from that time, we planned a frame that young people need to be part of the cooperation, because the population was based on the two agenda, the European agenda one side and the African agenda one side. Now, for the last 10 years, we move on. Now we have a strategic document as well between the two continents. But the most important for us as a African diaspora is what we call the Joint Africa-Europe Summit. And the summit has 4 tools. The summit focuses first of all on each year to gather the head of state to meet and decide what they are going to do as strategy and as program for the next 3 years. And at the same time, the summit gave opportunities for the young people from Africa and Europe to meet as well, to discuss about topics, not only topics relating to entrepreneurship. We talk about any kind of challenges that the young people can have. And the last one 3 years ago was the most successful one, because through what we call the youth plugging, both sides, we've been able to realize a hub which was funded by the EU, 10 million now, still running to foster the cooperation between the young people and in Africa and in Europe. And there are 2 other tools, very important also. The first one is a civil society meeting. This helped a lot Africa as well to improve, the quality of governance in the continent, while the both sides, civil society actors, are meeting and discuss about cooperation and how things can move on. the last one, which is the most important, I keep it for the last point for you, the business partnership. The business partnership is like a kind of forum. The implementation is through a forum, which is organized by the European Union, and they invited mostly the African entrepreneurs to join the European entrepreneurs. But this one didn't work well, during the last year, because most of the companies in Europe are either bigger or they want something only from Africa. The joint venture creation haven't been a successful issue, and even the fact that there is a lack of discussion between communication between them before meeting made that this point still very, very, the potential haven't been used so far. And the best thing which happened to the cooperation recently was 2 years ago when under each 6 months, we will have another country in Europe to lead the European Union. And then under the leadership of Austria, they decided to have the first forum ever on business. This is out of the tool, but a head of state can decide to invite other African countries and European countries to focus on a topic. And 2 years ago was very important because the topic was entrepreneurship, startups, young people, business in Africa. And it was a 2 days agenda, which was really a successful agenda because we worked before the meeting to work on some topics. And the most important topics we had at that time was agriculture 4.0, which is important, how we can increase the agriculture sectors in Africa, not only by telling to the young people you should do businesses in this sector, but to promote what we call know-how transfer from companies here to other companies in Africa. And fintech was also a big topic, and job for the 21st century was also a topic in investing in startup and the high education and research panel. And the outcome was, and as well as connecting cities, connectivity is issue in Africa. And after this forum, some European country, through the bilateral cooperation with the African Union, they achieved to mobilize funds, like an example, 10 years from Austria, and they gave to other partners, to development bank, in order to invest in programs of young people. Now they are getting to understand the way we should take forward. But how this happened, it's because since years now, we as diaspora entrepreneurs, we always came and explained to them, you should involve diaspora because they understand better the situation both sides. They are uniquely positioned to recognize those opportunities. And the fact that we were co-organizing the head of state meeting make them think about the new mechanism before we send some out of other states to Africa, to they went to countries like Rwanda, like Ethiopia, to see how it is really. Not only saying, okay, we'll invest money, and we develop mechanism, and we are still following. Until now, unfortunately, the next summit was exactly this month, next week normally, which has been postponed to next year. And what we want to do during this next summit, once again, we are facing some difficulties, like Europe decided to go to deal like green deals, deal that Africa didn't follow. It's because so far there is a big space for people like you, like me and others to tell to them, come on guys, we need to have something that both sides can take advantage of it. Because I've seen that Africa side, they are not following the new topics because they are not interesting for them so far. And young people, entrepreneurs and activists can always come together and tell them, let's go slowly and let's take those next steps. So the role of diaspora in boosting the entrepreneurial sector in Africa is huge. It's not only about know-how transfer. Now it's about technology transfer toward Africa. Now it's about access to market, both sides, Africa side to Europe and Europe side to Africa. And the last one are the most important, the skills we can transfer to other people through joint venture creation. Not only try to build the capacity of people, but to make sure that we'll go through joint ventures, we'll also make sure that we will mobilize funds together. As a diaspora, either you will bring your capacity, your skills, or you will bring money or technology or whatever you have, but we need to bring something and do with the local people. We say local, we are all local in Africa, but try to develop projects and programs together. This is the way now we need to promote, because this way is sure that we will create more jobs and we will boost the entrepreneurship of the diaspora. So the last point also that we are trying to do is like kind of awareness campaign between Europe and Africa. It's very important because we all understand that the VCs in Africa, they sometimes even don't understand the reality of the continent. And we can complain, we can try to talk that way, but the best way is also to support young entrepreneurs in Africa by building their capacity, online training, as a COVID response nowadays, to better train them to understand how they can get those funds. It's not only also to bring money in this case, but to explain to them, to give the right information to them, to build their capacity, to make sure that the project will face also those investments that Europe and Africa are putting together. And the good news is Africa decided to open their own development agency, which was NEPAD before, who became a development agency, and now we are trying also to develop relationship together to see how diaspora we can help through our programs and projects to contribute to the local development in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yusuf. This is very clear now that indeed when you have policies and an agenda in place that can foster entrepreneurs or investors to go in a certain direction, then it is easier for African entrepreneurs, diaspora entrepreneurs to come in and to boost. But if there is restrictions or barriers, it becomes more difficult to have access to those resources. But thank you a lot for enlightening us on the different paths that the EU and the EU have tried to put together. Maybe we can discuss now more about what other multilateral institutions are putting in place with you, Haifa. Through your role at the International Trade Center, basically you support in particular startups and SMEs on the African continent. What role do you think those companies play in advancing the EU agenda that Yusuf has just explained? And in particular in times of COVID-19, when travels and cross-border business relationships are particularly affected by the restrictions, how do you see those companies playing a big role, and how do you support them to do so?
Thank you very much, Melanie. So first, thanks for the initiative. I'm very glad to be here to both learn from you and from the participants, and also share our views. So first, I will start by an overview of what we do, also the kind of partnerships that we do in ITC, and then I will talk more about what these startups are actually doing in terms of both partnerships, but also in terms of contributing somehow, somewhat, to alleviating the effects of the COVID-19 crisis. So my name is Haifa. I work in ITC, the International Trade Center. We are half UN, half WTO, and our role basically is to provide technical assistance and market access. So Yusuf was mentioning the importance of market access also from the perspective of our continent to SMEs, startups, and also to the entire ecosystem business that these actors grow in. With ITC, we have been involved in the DTF, the Digital Economy Task Force, EU-AU, last year, and the work is still ongoing. And more specifically, we work in 10 African countries with several projects that aim globally. I mean, I will just summarize it in a few words. First, at building the capacity in terms of skills mentorship, coaching, training, but also work on market access to these startups, both at local level, regional level, but international level. So from our perspective, when talking about entrepreneurship in general, partnerships are just key. So working with different partners and various stakeholders along the value chain is crucial, as it permits both access to resources, bringing this multiplier effect as well, but also brings the complementarity and leverage aspect. So more specifically at ITC, we work both at an international/European level when it comes to partners, this to provide exposure, visibility. This is important also for startups who are interested in scaling further and getting access to in more infrastructure and resources. So I can mention very briefly our recent partnership with AWS, Amazon Web Services. We partnered with them to provide the startups that we support with the AWS Activate program that provides credits. Also, we partnered with Facebook with the program Boost Your Business, implemented by regional partners in Côte d'Ivoire and in Senegal. We partnered with Seedstars Switzerland to organize the Seedstars events in several countries. Afrolink, where we met recently, but last year also in Berlin, when this kind of meetings were still permitted. Green Tech also based in Berlin, and during our investor voucher program last year in Uganda, the Mobile World Congress, Vivatech Paris, and many other examples. In the continent per se, we partner with diverse actors ranging from VCs, from government institutions, support institutions such as tech hubs, startup incubators, and also telcos. So from the tech hub side, what we do is, we think it's crucial to work with tech hubs, startup incubators to boost this multiplier effect. So what can ITC does for 10 entrepreneurs? Partnering with a tech hub can lead to do it with 50 entrepreneurs, 100 entrepreneurs, with more. Also, we do it for the sustainability aspect. So this partnership with these institutions leads to ensure some expertise, some methodologies within a local actor, so that this expertise or methodology can be used in a long run. Here, for example, in Ethiopia, we work with Accelerate, in Rwanda with 250 startups in mentorship activities. In the Gambia, we work with Make 3D. It's a fab lab located in Banjul. We work together using the 3D technology to print PPE, so personal protective equipment, face shields, and other let's say gadgets, which are very important, especially in this context. We work with Bongo Hive in Zambia, a tech hub in Zambia, on a podcast on digital entrepreneurship. We work with the FinTech Association in Uganda, who played a key role in the National Payment System Act, so here at more the policy level, which aimed at creating a more regulated space for fintechs. So very briefly, we also work with telcos. For example, in the Gambia, we are partnering with Q Money to implement the API of Q Money in online businesses, Gambian businesses, e-commerce or other. We partnered with MTN Uganda to provide the startups we support with data bundles, which is very important now in this work from home new setting. We are doing the same thing with Liquid Telecom in Zambia. So these are a few examples. This is not really comprehensive overview of the partnerships that we have. And this is also a call for any interested party from the audience to come together, join forces, and implement activities together. So to move to the second part of the presentation, I think I cannot take part in any webinar without mentioning that this new normal and the rapidly changing environment which we are in currently. Yeah? It's not news anymore. Many things are disrupted in global value change, in patterns of consumption, sanitary emergencies, etc. It is a difficult context for everyone. Let's agree on that. However, I think it's very important to highlight the resilience of many actors across the continent, including tech startups that we are supported in our several programs. And here we can see that COVID-19 could also be a digitizing booster in some growth markets, such as the health tech, the e-commerce, the fintech, etc. So several startups that are in our cohort were able to successfully establish successful partnerships, both with European counterparts, but also at regional counterparts. I can state a few examples here, and of course, if you are interested in knowing more about them, you can reach out to me, and I can provide you with their contacts. We have, for example, Xente, a Ugandan fintech, who is partnering currently with Uber in Uganda, and who recently secured a partnership with Visa. Wena Hardware, Ugandan also digital home improvement and construction startup that partnered recently with Lafarge to distribute their products in Uganda. GNU Green, a Ugandan pay-go off-grid startups that partnered recently with the London-based Winch Energy for the use of smart DC systems for off-grid settings. So as I mentioned, this is more at the international European level but also partnerships can be done on a national and regional level as well, especially with government institutions, which can equally boost the digitization of the administration. Here I can mention Aeon, a Senegalese health tech, partnering with the Ministry of Health in Senegal to monitor the COVID-19 patients. The Beninese health tech, also REMA, is making their collaborative health application available for many African ministries of health. Cameroon, Mauritania, recently they expanded there. They were solving more than 2,000 cases. Firefly, Senegalese media startup, making their network of interconnected screens available to the Ministry of Health. Many examples showing both resilience and power of adaptation as well. So this is what tech startups, especially in our continent, are able to do at a very fast pace, let's say. So to finish, I would say that there's very tangible examples show that partnerships are really key, both to achieve a wider impact, but also to contribute to the digitization of the economy at a bigger level and at a systemic also level.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Haifa, for this comprehensive presentation and for also bringing those concrete examples where we really understand the magnitude of the impact that partnerships can have for small companies in our continent. And we can really understand that to have this opportunity of partnering and grow, you need also a strong ecosystem and kind of actors that have kind of created and found those partners for you to be able to grow and to go to the next level. And this is where I would like to go to you, Grace Lokako, because you are an ecosystem builder and you are working mostly on facilitating the access to resources for women entrepreneurs on the African continent. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you mobilize resources for those women entrepreneurs and how this contributes to achieving the objective of this African-European partnership idea? And in your opinion, what is particularly missing to support those women entrepreneurs in the region? Is this coming more from Europe, more from Africa? How would you see effective collaborations working?
Thank you so much, Melanie, and I'm happy to be here. And probably some of the things are going to be redundant because they've been said. Haifa mentioned the importance of partnerships, and that's exactly what we mean by innovation ecosystems. What we're trying to, the key word I'd say is synergies. Because I've talked with many entrepreneurs, especially in DR Congo, you see that it's still not in the culture to look at who is up there, who's doing what, how can we join together to do things together. It's more about everyone is against me. How am I going to thrive in this ecosystem? How am I going to sell my product when he is selling the same product across the street? So it's still not in the mindset of people to say, hey, let's join hands and be stronger together. And if you look at the most successful stories of companies, you'll see that partnering, cooperating, acquired companies, co-creating a product together. So those synergies are always in the most turning point for company, and they are key to growth for this company. And so we're replicating this mindset to empower female entrepreneurs. So the main goal of the innovation ecosystem we're building is to create a network that of support that is self-sufficient and grows organically. On the one side, we're creating programs with innovation hubs in the Global South to provide tailored support for these female founders. The first step of which was the 12-week capacity program we took part in with Sinolu. And the goal was really, we engaged with entrepreneurs through these innovation hubs. As you mentioned, Haifa, ourselves, we can only reach maybe 5 to 10 entrepreneurs, but with the hubs, we were able to reach out to, if I'm correct, this program, we were able to talk to about 600 entrepreneurs in just 12 weeks and during COVID. So that's what we did, and we really engaged with them in these 12 weeks to understand the context, to understand the challenges they face. And the second part for now, for us, is now to think and design programs that we tackle relevant and urgent challenges across these several hubs in the continent. And the one advantage of partnering with these hubs is that we exchange skills and knowledge. We evolve in different contexts. So the Swiss context is probably different from the Parisian or Italian context, even more so if you take the Congolese context. It's absolutely different ways of doing things, it's different culture. This government does not support in the same way. People don't react in the same speeches. You have to really adapt to who you're talking to and who you're working with. And that's the richness we have from these partnerships, that we exchange what we know from where we are, and we harness both our networks and skills to reach our common goal. And this, I'd say, this AU-EU partnership we're creating is really based on co-creation and exchange. We really want to get away from this methodology of creating something all done here in Switzerland, for example, and bringing it to Kinshasa and say, hey, we brought you this. That's not how it works. That's not how you make a sustainable solution for the future generations. That's not how you make growth happening. You have to work with the people who are in this context. If you want to try to build solutions for Kinshasa, you have to work with Congolese that are actually in Kinshasa and harness everything that they know, everything that they've acquired throughout the years, and include it in your mindset and co-create together. So that's really, I'd say, the main richness we have from that. And on the other side, we want to showcase the incredible work the women entrepreneurs are already doing in the continent with our campaigns. People always think, oh, we have to bring them this, we have to, but actually people on the ground are doing amazing things already. They just need some push, either from the government or from another entrepreneur who's based in Switzerland or whatever, or talents. They need push, they don't need you to come and solve their problems. And so really what we do is we want to showcase what they do, because of course, today investors are getting more and more attracted by Africa. It is undoubtedly the future. In a few years, most of the population will be very, very young. It is attractive, but for them today, there's no way to have a complete overview of what's happening in terms of successful startups that are created by women or startups with high potential. There's not like one big event for them to know it, or one specific database that they could just go in and say, oh, I want to invest in this specific startup run by this person. So that's what we do. And the biggest challenge, as you said, for them is this visibility, because even though they're doing great things, if they can't have access to these investors or the other stakeholders of the community, it's very difficult to scale. And that's the reason they don't scale, is visibility. They don't have a way, an easy way, at least we'll say, to reach out to these investors. And if you can't have access to the investors, it's difficult for you to acquire talents, because that's also one of the big things. If you don't have the money to hire people who are skilled, it's difficult for you to keep going through. And the context of Kinshasa is that if you want to have skilled people, you have to pay. It's really expensive. Just because education is still not mainstream at this point, we can't say that everyone going to university get out of it with so many skills. We can't say that for a fact. So what they're going through is that it's difficult to acquire people who have their startup scale. So that's the one thing. And then today, even during COVID, we understood even more so the importance of having a digital footprint. If you're not digital, how do you reach out to people when you can't travel? And even without that, it's expensive to travel. It's expensive to go reach out to other people. So the one thing also we want to do with this visibility is for them to be able to have a reach beyond their city, beyond their local governments, because we know it's difficult. At least, the contexts are different throughout the country, but we know that for Kinshasa instance, it's very difficult to get support. You have to knock on so many doors, and there are so many challenges along the way for you to even reach that door. So the digital footprint is essential for them. So that's why we really work on educating. So first, creating this database of successful entrepreneurs. So we have that database for investors, but also we educate them on gender lens investing and what it means, because today we still see the disparity, the gaps between those entrepreneurs who are able to scale and those who aren't. And we want to, the same way we hold accountable companies today, we say you have to give equal opportunities, equal pay. That's the same way we Bloom, we want to tell investors, we want to hold them accountable of their portfolio. How diverse are you? How inclusive are you? Because that's if we start with this bias already, then the big net companies will have these gaps even bigger because it's scaled already. So that's really what we do. We try to educate and raise the awareness towards gender lens investing, but really also to help them, and we're not expert yet, we're learning by doing, but we also want to help them understand the impact of how they invest and who they invest in. So that's really a broad version of, it's a big answer to your question, but it summarizes what we try to do within innovation ecosystems.
Thank you very much for that. Was very inspiring, and it is clear that we also need in Africa to build our own local ecosystems before we even think about collaborations abroad. But this is good that we have actors like you that really tackle that issue, and then have the potential of collaborating with other international actors that want to support entrepreneurs in the continent. This is a fascinating conversation that we're having there. Thank you very much, Grace, again. And since we've talked a lot about gender investing as well, and that we've talked a lot about entrepreneurship so far, but not so much about the investors themselves and how they can also collaborate and innovate to support young entrepreneurs on the continent. I will give the mic now to Frank. Frank, as the CEO of AVPA, the African Venture Philanthropy Alliance, you are working especially on mobilizing financial resources and non-financial resources towards African early stage entrepreneurs. Could you please enlighten us on how investors can also implement innovative collaborations, especially between African and European investors, and how they can support early stage companies on the continent? And since I know that you're also a great supporter of women entrepreneurs, could you please also tell us more about how you propose innovative instruments to support those women entrepreneurs that are making change in the region?
Thank you, Melanie. It sounds very funny when you say I'll pass the mic on a virtual session. It's been a while since we. But no, but nonetheless, thank you. So it's a very interesting time, and I want to echo what Grace has said. If you're an investor and you're looking for opportunities, there's no better place to be than in Africa, because investors invest in problem solvers. And Africa, we have more problems than we could imagine. So I think there's no better place. And I mean, a lot of the investors we deal with are in the impact investing space. And I say, if you really want to create impact in the world, create impact in Africa. There's no better place for you to create real change globally And a better Africa is a better place, is a better world in many ways. So we're really big advocates for the continent. AVPA is an investor-only network, so we don't take in recipients of capital. And the kind of people we take in are people who are deploying not just financial capital, but also human and intellectual capital. So advisory services, people offering things like IT, M&E services, training, that kind of stuff. And our whole objective is to see how we can increase the flow of capital into the continent. Now, we know a big part of the ecosystem in supporting businesses, and especially in the COVID crisis, I think we can't expect this continent to grow and thrive if we don't support small businesses. A lot of our recovery will be driven by small business support. And right now it's a pretty tough space if you're a small business owner in many places. So we are going to be looking to see how we can develop the ecosystem that supports the small business. So a lot of our focus is looking at the kind of investor who's deploying smaller ticket size, and that's quite relative, but generally $25 million and below, but majority of them are much lower than that. And to that end, we are trying to, first of all, make people understand that we need a different financing model for African, the ecosystem, because traditionally a lot of our money, even in supporting some of this, has come from philanthropy, has come from corporate foundations, has come from aid. A lot of those now, those sources of capital are under threat at the moment. We're not getting as much aid in Africa as we used to, because more and more of our countries are moving into middle income status. Our governments are broke. They were broke before COVID. They're worse now. If you look at our public debt to GDP in many countries, it's rising every day. And this is where those of us who are playing in this kind of innovative space really need to come in and support the flow of capital, especially to the small SMEs and the missing middle. That's in my view. So in the context of this, I think it opens up some really creative opportunities. So if you look at AVPA, the kind of members we bring on board are right what we call across the continuum of capital. So anything from players providing debt, equity, or grants. Because we believe there's magic that happens when those different types of capital blend together. In the case, for example, of a lot of SMEs and early stage businesses are too risky for a lot of your mainstream investors to put money into. So how can we use grant capital as de-risking capital in that early stage phase of a lot of these businesses, so that they can get to the point where they've got a proof of concept, they've got a product, they've got customers, and then they can attract the next level investor. Right now, we look and think many of these can just get straight up investors from the beginning, and it's hard. It's really, really hard because capital is also scarce. So we try and break down the silos to increase that collaboration between your grant makers, your impact investors, and your mainstream investors. And we're very unique in the context of bringing all those people onto one platform. So that's one of the first things. The second thing I think we also try and do is we recognize it's not always about financial capital. There's also non-financial support that's required. In many cases, you go and meet some business owners. It's not that they can't access money sometimes. It's just that they don't know how to put it to best use. And so helping that capacity building with that particular group of people. So our platform also accommodates non-financial supporters, providers, because we know that's also a critical thing. And we have networks. We're very lucky to have sister organizations in Europe, in Asia, and Latin America. So we have EVPA in Europe, AVPN in Asia, and Latin Impact in South America. So we're able to move around lessons learned. So for example, the Asians have been solving some of these youth unemployment problems for much longer than we have. And if you look at what we do in Africa, we tend to reinvent the wheel all the time. And that's why even at an SME support, as an SME level, despite the fact that we're solving youth unemployment in almost all the 54 African countries, you don't get scaled businesses. You don't get businesses that are in Kenya, they're in Morocco, because we just don't think it from that perspective. And when you look at Asia, I mean, I was in India in November, I was amazed that they have school programs of entrepreneurship that are in 35,000 schools. And in many countries in Africa, we want to start one from scratch. We don't need to go through that organic process. What can we learn from the rest of the world? And I think there's a real value where some European investors who are also investing in other parts of the world, who got a global view of solutions that Africa needs, should be thinking, how can I connect Africans to other people in the world who are solving similar problems? and let them, kind of gel and figure out how they can make the knowledge transfer happen. So it's not necessarily directly from Europe to Africa, but through connection that European investors who've got global footprint can help. So I think that's one of the other things we could do. We could do a lot better. I also always tell investors, if you want to also innovate, use Africa as your base and your laboratory for trying things. I mean, Africa is a home for mobile money. Companies that were using drones to transport blood did their first innovations in Africa because we don't have, in many cases, and that could be good or bad, as stringent regulations in some spaces. So you can try a lot more stuff in Africa than you can try anywhere else. And we've got an educated population. There's a lot of very smart people on the continent who can be part of your teams to do that. I'm working with a German company that's now looking to bring drones into the continent at a very low cost, to fly them at $20 an hour, not the $800 an hour you're getting at the moment. And they want to build the drones in Africa and run them using Africans. So there's a lot of stuff that's very, very possible. And then I think you're seeing a change amongst the investors in Africa. So we're part of a consortium that's looking at $100 million fund that will look to support early stage businesses on the continent. And this is partially has been in response to what we've seen where if you're not African, it's hard to access money from the West sometimes. So part of this fund is to actually look at how do you support African-led small businesses in the process.
Wow.
And then we're also very proud to say that in the next 7 days, we're launching a pilot of a deal share platform. And the deal share platform is there to do two things. One, to help investors who are investing in social enterprise in Africa or impact businesses be able to access additional capital for growth, for scale, or for replication, or even for exit. But the deal share platform will also be able to help people with money access deal flow, African deal flow. So that pilot goes live in the next 7 days. We are also in the next 7 days launching our agenda platform. I'm super excited about that. And the agenda platform will have 3 communities in it: the economic empowerment and livelihood, and the gender lens investing community. And the gender lens investing community will look to especially support women-led entrepreneurs and business holders, but also support female fund managers on the continent. Only 5% of fund managers on the continent are women, and that has to change. So those initiatives go live in the next 7 days. And the third thing we're launching in the next 2 weeks also is a social investment mapping exercise that we've been doing for the last 8 months, almost 10 months from November last year. And this is a study that was looking at the social investment space across the continent. Trying to understand who's doing what kind of capital is moving. Some very interesting stuff for the next speaker around diaspora funding as well that's come out of the study. And that study will be available in the next 2 weeks. So I'll stop there for now.
Thank you very much, Frank. That was very, very, very enlightening and insightful to understand how those investors can collaborate. So we understand well that there is this idea of collaborating between different type of capital, between philanthropic, commercial capital, but also cross-border. So with investors that would invest globally and could bring best practices to Africa. That's very interesting. And I like also a lot the idea that you brought about supporting more female fund managers, supporting more African local fund managers that, of course, will be able to collaborate with international investors and other type of funds, but would take those problematics of supporting local funders and supporting women entrepreneurs at heart. And this gives me a very good transition to you, Gerard, because as the CEO of the Diaspora Angel Network, we understand that you have also the passion at heart to support African entrepreneurs and to support early stage ventures in the continent. Could you please tell us more how the diaspora, the African diaspora, is playing a role in this whole investor ecosystem, and what are the challenges that remain? Because the diaspora investment has been a big topic for the past, I would say, 5-10 years. It's been in every report, in every conference, but it doesn't look like we are really achieving to do it effectively. So what is your approach, and how do you see this evolving in the future?
Thank you, and thanks again for having me. I mean, it's really interesting hearing what everyone else is saying. And you know, sometimes you're doing what you're doing, and you think you're in this bubble and you're working alone. But it's always fascinating to see people that are doing exactly the same thing, you know, with the same passion as well. So it's great to see. I think from my perspective as an angel investor, and that's the lens in which I'll look at this. I think there are a number of things that we need to first of all understand, just clear some assumptions. The first thing is Africa is a huge country. No, it's not a country, it's a continent. and what that means is that you've got loads of countries within one continent, and you've got different jurisdictions, different appetite for different kind of policies, etc. So I think that for one is the most important thing to realize. There are a number of issues that I think are the challenges, like you asked, for people like myself and more and more angel investors who want to go into the continent. The first thing is access to startups. So we don't actually know in the diaspora, that is, who these startups are. What are they doing? What innovations are they coming up with? We kind of live in this part of the world, and we hear the news usually when it's happened. You can imagine how busy my phone was, when the Paystack news hit the media, and everyone's, oh, Jared, I want to be an angel investor. Oh, can I sign up to Diaspora Angel Network? Yeah, that's the good news, and that's when you hear it. But what you want to be hearing is before Paystack went to YC, that's when you want to get in. Before they became what they are, that's when you want to get in. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to do with, making that easier. And that's one of the things we're trying to do at Diaspora Angel Networks, is just to make more accessible to the founders that are on the continent and doing these great things. Then there's a risk management factor as well, which is a challenge. We live in the western part of the world, or outside of Africa, where a lot of systems are in place to de-risk investments, to de-risk startups, even though startups are risky. I say this to people that want to become angel investors. Angel investing is the riskiest form of investment you can do. And then you take that to Africa, one of the riskiest, if not the riskiest geographical regions in the world. And what do you have? Risk upon risk. So it makes sense to any investor. An investor doesn't go into angel investing or investment to lose money. We go in to try and make some money. So the idea of investing in startups in Africa is very risky. So how do you de-risk that? And I love what a lot of people have been saying. One of the things Grace mentioned earlier on is working locally with partnerships. What we do very well is local angel investors. So if you're a startup and you're coming to me from Nairobi, and you don't have an angel investor in Nairobi that's ready to put money into you, why would I, sitting in London, want to put money into your startup? So the thinking is we partner with the local people who have local content knowledge, who can assess these startups in a much more robust way than we can. And that's the idea. You work locally with partners to help make these things work. And then you have the interesting conversation about how much is a startup valued at, what's the challenge? Do I know if you tell me that your valuation is at $1 million, is that real? Is that significant? And you've got angel investors who are investing a very limited amount of money into various startups. So what they want to be able to do is pick the right startups. And again, that's another challenge, because you've only got a limited amount of flow. Typically, angel deals in the West, you're talking about 25K, minimum ticket deals, the traditional sense of angel investing. Now, one of the things we're looking at Diaspora Angel Networks, how can we make that more accessible? How can someone in the diaspora earning 50, 60K per annum, euros per annum, and just wants to invest, 1,000 euros, how can he or she still be involved in a like of Paystack, for example? And that's one of the things that we're really looking at. And hopefully in the not too distant future, we would have a solution for that, where we can almost equity crowdfunding for diasporans in the West and in other countries as well, to be able to pool money together, into these startups. So that's another area that, you know, seems to be a challenge at the moment. So you've only got very little supply going in. And then, you know, the ecosystem, and we need to be honest about this, the ecosystem in Africa is still very in its early stages. A lot of angel investors still need to learn. I said before, angel investing is very risky. You know, it's not something you go into lightly. So there's a lot of education that needs to happen on the continent, trying to make people understand the variant risks, you know, political risk, institutional voids that exist, you know, things like the markets that haven't really been tested. So you don't know, whilst you can come in with your pitch deck and tell me that, oh, wow, my addressable market is 10 million people, you know, equals $10 billion. And then my target market is 2 million people equals $2 billion. Test those assumptions, you know, because it's easy to say that, but when you're bringing an innovative product, it's crazy, particularly in the UK or in Europe, to adopt these things, you know, let alone in Africa where people are a bit resistant, you know. Over here you'd have people queuing for hours because the latest iPhone 12 is out and they've got an iPhone 11, but they'll still queue for hours because they want to embrace that. Africa, we think we've got other challenges. So if your solution or your product is not addressing a real core need, then adoption might be a challenge. I see a lot of, you know, startups that I am involved in. Adoption is a challenge. It's not that the product is not good. It's good. The customers need the product, but they just don't buy into it because they've got other priorities. So those are the challenges that we are facing on the continent. So in terms of addressing these challenges, you know, I did say earlier on, we're doing a number of things, but where Diaspora Angel Network tries to help is do three things. The first thing, what we do is educate. We educate the angel investors. We try to explain to them with our local partners on the continent, try to educate the would-be angel investors in the diaspora. And that's one of the things we do. We educate them, what's angel investing, what are the risks, etc. The next thing we try to do is then facilitate. So get the angel investors, get the founders, bring them together, connect them to the angel investors, all through a seamless platform of some sort, working with local incubation hubs, local angel investors, local accelerator hubs, in partnership with those. Getting the quality deals, because there are a lot of poor quality deals, but trying to get the good quality deals, source those good quality deals and bring them to the diaspora. And then once we've been able to facilitate that, the journey through doing your due diligence and then actually signing contracts and then, you know, making the payments and then portfolio management. Now, once we've done all of that, then, you know, the ecosystem between the diaspora and the people locally is growing. The last thing we try to do is promote that. And this addresses the first problem I mentioned, which is access. You promote the good stuff. You know, I've lined up 5 blogs that I want to write about Paystack, you know, just to promote that, you know. Unfortunately, I didn't invest. I wish I wish I did. I'd probably be smiling a lot bigger smile than I have now. But generally, those are the 3 things we do. We educate, we facilitate, and then we promote. And we hope that if we could do all of this, you know, it helps us achieve our goal, which ultimately is economic empowerment on the continent, which ties up very nicely to the SDG goals. And that's how I wrap up.
Yes, thank you very much. That wraps it up very well. And I think it's really inspiring what you said at the beginning, that we can see that we are all working on the same direction. And the beauty of our continent is that we have so much to achieve together, so much to build, that there's no competition anymore. It's just all about collaboration and how we can partner with each other to help a certain segment, be it women entrepreneurs. We haven't talked about refugee entrepreneurs or other sectors that we haven't tapped in during this meeting, but there's a lot to do in Africa, and we need to all work together to help investors on one side, help entrepreneurs, and then bring the connection. And that's thank you very much, all of you, for testifying about those great initiatives. And I will pass it on to Ian Minjuri, who joined us and is here now in the panel to kind of give the last words of this meeting that lasted 1 hour sharp, so German time almost.
Thank you very much, Melanie, and I'm greatly honored to be part of this group of change makers, you know, that bring out the strength of Africa and Africa for Africans. It's really an honor for me to be able to see what is already happening behind closed doors and bring it out to the light. I'd like to quickly say that, you know, there's already a lot of things that we mentioned from the different things that I believe are very impactful moving forward, because I had a lot of people talking about synergies, ecosystem, the visibility, access to investors. I think it's so important that we understand and that it's also reiterated to us, because part of Melanin Capital's belief is it's not only money an entrepreneur needs. You know, if you have to pick him up from the bottom. Entrepreneur is like a baby. You must pick them up, help them, support their hand, get them through that tough journey, educate them, advise them, mentor them, you know, and then give them access to those investors who can then just propel them up to the level that they need to be. So it's a great honor to hear all these different perspectives and to also step up and add on to what Europe is already doing with Africa. I believe already from a research by the Institute by Montaigne, it was said that 40% of direct foreign investment in Africa comes from Europe, and almost 37 to 38% imports between Europe, and exports and imports between Europe, up and between Europe and Africa. So it's important for us to realize that this collaboration is already happening. We just need to raise it up a notch and everything will come through for entrepreneurs. So it's a pleasure to have you on board. Through the Tuungane program, we are going to then portray so many more of our startups from next week. We have maternal healthcare, and we have sustainable transportation. We have education through virtual reality. We have real estate investment through fintech. So we really want to show that there's serious talent in Africa, and we can merge this with the different talent pools in Europe, you know, access these different markets and share the different technology. So thank you very much. And please join us this week on Friday and for the next couple of weeks live on Facebook.
Thank you very much, Ian, and thank you all again for following us. We saw that we had some comments on the live. We will respond individually to each comment, but we are happy that we had the opportunity to have this first discussion and launch our first event and our first program with all of you. We have a lot that we can do together. Stay also tuned for the platform that we are developing in-house, our tech platform called Collabo, that will be able to join all the ecosystem into one mobile application and have access to all this network and do connection and education through a mobile technology platform. Thank you all and have a great evening, everyone. For the speakers, maybe we can stay on the Zoom and we'll just stop the live. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a good day.